So in today's video, I'm going to be backtesting gold. The purpose of this session that we're going to be going through today is to test a set 1 to 3 risk to reward take profit system and how this compares to my current take profit system. I'm going to be seeing which is more profitable and showing you guys how you can optimize your trading strategy and system in order to make the most profits possible out of the current system that you have. If any of that sounds interesting to you guys, make sure to leave a like below the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and let's get straight into the backtesting session. Alright guys, so as mentioned, in today's video I'm going to be doing the same thing as last time, but this time I'm going to be doing it on gold, and we're going to be simply testing the system and strategy that I use, which I've explained in previous videos on gold, but using a simple and more mechanical take profit rule. So for this, I'm testing a 1 to 3. Later on, I will also go back through this myself and basically find the optimal mechanical take profit. So whether that be a 1 to 2, a 1 to 3, a 1 to 4. Obviously, this will be dependent on the win rate as well. So we need to do some more testing to basically find that optimal level basically I'm trying to find the risk to reward which gives the highest profit over the course of 100 or so trades, depending on the win rate, which will obviously vary depending on this metric. So in today's video, I thought I'd just take you guys through a backtesting session on gold with this mechanical 1 to 3 risk to reward, so you guys can also see how I view the market and how this would look if we were simply targeting a 1 to 3. So I've already done a little bit of backtesting. I went from the beginning of 2021 and this is currently August 2022. And I plan on doing this up to the present date to gather enough data. 3 years is a sufficient amount of data, and I wouldn't recommend doing any less than that if you're backtesting a strategy. So yeah, let's get straight into it. Where I left off, gold was sort of range bound on the weekly time frame, so it made its way up, almost took out all-time highs but didn't quite reach, and then we had this huge sell-off back down towards these previous lows. So what I am anticipating now is I don't expect price to just reverse from this random area because it hasn't taken out the liquidity just yet. So what I am looking for price to do is sell a little bit lower, at least until this weekly liquidity here, which I'm going to mark on with a line as well, just so I know that when price has taken out that area of liquidity. And we'll go back over to the daily and mark on some areas where we could potentially see price come into. Actually, we will go over to the 4 hour instead. So if we're looking just internally right here, price is still bullish on the 4 hour, but going back to the daily, we are approaching daily supply. So you could say it's this whole area, but I would like to refine this to this candle right here. And this is basically the area of supply, which caused this imbalance and also took structure to the left. So we could potentially see a reaction from that level. Back down to this weekly liquidity, that would be the main target. But for now, we could also potentially look to capitalize on some buys up to that level, since the 4 hour is overall bullish. And also what I've just noticed as well on the 4 hour, you can see this is like a very, very clean level of supply where we would expect price to potentially give a reaction. So following this hourly structure, we've had mitigation of this demand. Price then broke the high. Just there. So if we play price on a little bit more, so what I'd be looking at this point in time would be basically this is the current range we're looking at between this low and this high. So I would want to see price come into some sort of area and buy up to the area of daily supply that we're anticipating price to come into. At which point we can look for some sells. So what I would be looking at the moment would be, I have a few potential ideas. The first one would be to see price potentially react from this area of demand we have right here. The second would be if it came down and swept this low, that would also be valid. If not, you will probably see price come and liquidate all of these lows down here. So we could also see that. And what I would be doing in the live market, obviously we have a few potential scenarios. What I'd be doing is just waiting to see how price reacts within any of these particular zones, and reacting to price rather than predicting where it might go. So let's see how price reacts here. Ideally, we also want to see this wick taken to the left. Yeah, there we go. That is why we wait for the reaction. And it looks like price wants to head a little bit lower as well. Potentially, price is currently reacting from this. It's taken out all of those previous buyers. So we could also see buys from this zone. That would also be valid for me, depending on how it reacts here. The only issue with this would be that, you know, price has moved up, but we haven't had any breaks of structure to the left, so I wouldn't buy just yet. So what I'd be looking at here would be either for price to come back to this low, sweep the low, and then break structure, or just to continue all the way up and take this high just here, which is that most recent structure. So yeah, we'll play this on a higher time frame and wait and see if one of those things happens. Yeah, so there you go. Price did break this structure just here. This is a bit of a weird scenario because we did have this huge drop. Price didn't break any structure, so there wasn't a valid entry, at least for me. What we could see now, potential retracement into one of these areas. Still looking at buys for price to take this previous high. But ideally, we want to see a retracement for price to take something before it heads higher. So at the moment, I'm seeing like this potential area of demand below all of this. Let's see if it starts to pull back. So in this situation, I would just set a limit here, have stops just below, and like I said, mechanical 1 to 3. A bit of a big stop loss on this, but it is more of a swing trade. All right, so price never came back to tag us in, that's fine. Let's see where it did react from actually. So it sort of came into this area, but yeah, that's not something I would have taken. All right, so price has now tagged into our higher time frame supply. So at this point, I would stop looking for the buys and I'd be looking for the sells. It took all of these highs as well. Remember, the daily is overall still bearish as well. This was just, well, we're expecting this to just be a retracement. So let's look how price reacts here. Want to see at least this logo. Cool, so there you go. Sweep of this previous high. Price then broke structure. And clearly the overall structure has now shifted bearish because we've had, you know, a decent amount of momentum coming into this low, and then price broke straight past it. Potential entries, we could have this hourly area of supply. And I like this because we've had this sort of inducement below it. It was also left inefficient, so we can look to potentially enter here. Again, a 1 to 3. And if price pulls back into the level, let's see how it reacts lower time frame as well. Cool, so I'm liking this reaction at the moment. See if it can continue. Oh, so that was close. Let's see how that could have been better. So ideally, we could have waited for another confirmation within this region. So as you can see, price went a little bit higher than the supply, taking out any of the people that were selling just here. And yeah, we sort of had like a mini breaker structure, but yeah, I'm fine with how our entry was. Obviously, it can always be better, but if we continue to mark on the structure, we've had another break just here. And I'm just going to go back on the higher time frame. So overall narrative now is I'm expecting price to just head back towards these lows. You know, on the daily time frame, we did react from that supply. Lots of momentum coming from that level. And we also left that weekly liquidity below as well. Cool, so let's look for potential re-entries on the sells. It probably is just going to go from there. Let's see what happens at this zone. So either this zone or it could come up and sweep this high. Those would be the two areas that I'd mainly look at. So let's see what happens here. Or maybe it just goes straight from there. Yeah, so not expecting it to come back here now. Let's have a look where we are. I'm just going to mark this low with a line as well, so we know when that's taken. But looking on the 4 hour, what I would like to see would be all of this liquidity taken out, potentially into this supply. To look for some more sells. Lots of momentum at the moment, so we may not see a bigger pullback. Yeah, so I'm going to get rid of that. So I was just thinking, actually, if we had... Actually, no. I was considering some potential buys, but I would see that as a low probability. Reason was we had a break of this and we sort of left this demand, but I prefer to just wait for the buys. There we go. It did work out, actually. So like I said, it came into this zone, took out all of these people, and then we got the buys. I wouldn't really want to buy from here though. Look, it's just like a random area. Price was overall bearish, so yeah, not the best setup in my opinion. What I would look at for instead would be, now that we've had a pullback into this zone, I would look for some sells. So all of this got taken out. Let's have a look what happens here. Not really anything yet. Yeah, so good zone, but not really a valid entry for me. Next zone would be this region, because we want to see a pullback into a premium, and price, we also need to see price sweep some liquidity, which in this case we have this zone. So let's see. Price is in the zone. It sort of mitigated demand to the left, but I would still consider the buys since we are overall bearish. I like the reaction as well so far. So just see if that continues. So this would probably be a bit of a riskier entry, but we did have this 5-minute break of structure. Price left behind this supply. And what I'd do in this scenario would be, I'd have probably a bit more of a conservative stop loss and still target a 1 to 3. So what I would do with this, because I'm looking for price to target this low, and this is above a 1 to 3, I would simply make the stop loss a bit bigger. Just because the sort of invalidation zone for this trade would be if it came above the supply. Obviously, we don't want a stop loss all the way above there, but this just basically gives us a higher probability of the trade playing out. If it even tags in. So yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to tag in at the moment. So I'm going to delete this limit. Yeah, so good analysis, but no entry really. Again, just following the structure now. Next zone for sells would be this region. Same reason as before. It's in a premium. We have all this liquidity below it, and we're looking for that to get taken. Or not. Still looking for price to target that low. I'm not really seeing too much here. Okay, so we still have this region. Price has swept this high into it. So I'm liking this at the moment. Decent amount of liquidity has been taken out. Let's see how it reacts. I'm gonna enter there, stops above the high, and target 1 to 3. Okay, stop loss on that one, that's fine. Alright, actually the sells are still valid here. This is very nice actually. So price basically, it swept the supply with this wick. It came back up, swept the sweep of the liquidity, if that makes sense. And then it broke this low. We have this sort of inducement, and we also have this very obvious level of supply. So to get back in, I would set a limit here. Stops just above the high. And once again, 1 to 3 target down here. Another confluence I like for this as well is that it kind of just came into this random imbalance, and I don't think it's taken enough liquidity to break the high. So see what happens within this zone. Oh, there we go. Very nice. I guess this was some sort of news. It happened at 12:30, so probably. So if with my current strategy, instead of targeting the 1 to 3, we would have targeted the previous lows down here. But for this, we are happy with that 1 to 3. I'm going to just change the color of this. Mark on this breaker structure. I'm also just going to quickly mark on this low. That would be the target that we're looking for price to come into now. Since price has flipped back bearish, it's going to come and take all of this previous liquidity. Yep, or you might just go straight down to it. And cool, so all of that weekly liquidity was taken out, which we had marked. So this one right here. So we can get rid of these lines now. So what I would watch out for now, since these lows were taken out, I can also see this weekly area of demand to the left. So I think it's very likely you will see price react from this zone, since it has taken the weekly liquidity and we have this demand below. We still have those highs above as well on a longer term time frame. Just going to get rid of some of these drawings as well. This was the main daily breaker structure as well, so I'll mark that on. Like that. Next area for potential sells would be if we can see a pullback into the supply. So sort of this whole region. All right, so I'm gonna keep monitoring this soon. Hasn't quite touched it yet. I'm going to try and get some buys up to it actually. So what I'm seeing here is that we've had sort of a break of that structure to the left. We refine this a little bit. So on the 15-minute, we had a break of this high. Actually, this one was the main high. Price then came back into demand. We've got all of these highs just above. Right, and this sort of area would be where I would look for the buys. Now that price has swept this low, cool. So let's have a look what price does here. Sweep of that zone is also valid. It's just consolidating at the moment. Play this on the 15-minute instead. Alright, so I was looking for a break of that high, but let's have a look because price probably isn't going to pull back. So what we've got here, let's have a look again. Initial breaker structure, pull back into demand. We're then looking at this sort of internal trend. We had a sweep of the demand. Price broke this structure to the left. We're still looking to target all of these highs. And I kind of just missed that, but this would have been the entry zone. Let's see if price pulls back into it. So I would have just entered here, but I played price too fast, so we missed it. Let's have a look if it tags us in. Cool, so a little loss on that one. All right, so there we go. The analysis was correct, but we had a sweep of everything out first. And what we're looking for now, we're looking for sells within this supply. Still expecting price to maybe come a little bit lower. So let's have a look how it reacts here. Cool, so this looks pretty nice. This would be sort of a perfect setup, and we'll set a limit here. Stops a little bit above that high, and we'll go for a 1 to 3. See if it pulls back. Probably not. I'm going to keep that for now until it breaks the low. Play it on 15-minute as well. All right, so trade is tagged in. Not really liking the look of that actually, but we'll keep the trade. See how it reacts here. Ideally, we want this low to go. Nice, so there we go. Cool, and price has now tagged into that weekly demand. I'm going to get rid of some of these drawings. So I think it is very likely we will see buys here. We've swept all of these lows into the demand. Let's just monitor for a potential entry. Nothing just yet. Right, so that's quite a convincing change of character. We had a pullback, push down, breaking the lows, and then price has now broken that high. And the area I would look to get in from would be this, because this is the discounted demand. And I'm just going to set a limit there. And I'll see if price pulls back or not. Probably not, so I'd cancel this now actually. And look for another entry. Very bullish price, so not expecting a pullback all the way to this level just yet, but it would still be valid if price came into that zone. Also just going to mark on this daily supply where we could see some sells. Technically the daily is still bearish. We can see that this was the most recent lower high, which put in a new low just here. So if price does react from here, I'll also consider some sells, but for now just looking for the buys up, expecting price to at least take this liquidity just here. So let's see where price could potentially buy from. Okay, cool. So all of this liquidity was taken. Either we see price sell lower into the demand, which is this area, or price just goes from here. Let's have a look at what the 5 minute does. So all of this was taken out. 5 minute just broke structure. I'm going to see if I can enter on this. Bit of a more aggressive trade, but I think it's worth the risk. Cool, so there we go. Almost hit stop loss, but that's fine. Could have slightly refined that, but my thought process was I'll set a limit here because this was the last liquidity within that range. And yeah, I'd rather, have a slightly bigger stop loss rather than miss the trade altogether. So based on the 5 minute, what we're looking for now is for price just to simply continue back to the highs. And I'll look to see if any more POIs form on the way. Maybe this sort of area. So I like this because it swept the liquidity, broke the structure. It is a 5 minute POI though, so might not be any confirmation. So price is reacting from here. You did sort of see this 15-minute change of character as well. Pull back into demand sweep of all this liquidity. Not really a valid entry there though. And there you go. So price has broken the structure again. Just going to mark that on. So yeah, at some point, I definitely see price coming back, sweeping this low into the demand. I don't think it has taken enough liquidity yet for it to do that. I could be wrong. If I am wrong, that's fine. I'll wait for that level, but I think we will almost like, I think we will see a sweep of this before we see any bigger sells. So for now, I would be looking at maybe this area of demand. I quite like. See how this reacts. Had a sweep at that low. Clear break of structure. So I'm going to enter here, but have slightly bigger stop loss. I want to target that high ideally, so I'm just going to make this a 1 to 3. And let's see how this goes. Looking very nice. Cool, so there we go. So one of the things we can learn from this is that our actual entry area was wrong. You can see that price came a little bit lower, but because we didn't have a very tight stop loss like this, like I see a lot of people do, we were still in the trade and we managed to secure 3%, which is very good, despite what other people will tell you on social media and stuff. 3% is very good going. And yeah, very nice trade. Looking for price to come up to this high, like we said. Could potentially look for a re-entry here. So we've had a break of this high. I would consider that a break of structure. This area of demand would be valid for me simply because it swept these lows to the left. It was imbalanced. And you could also say it's the extreme of this current leg of the trend. So this being the low and this being the high. So let's see how price reacts here. Okay, cool. So price wants to go a little bit lower. This whole region that price is in right now would still be valid for me because we've had a sweep of this. So let's see what happens here. Cool, so it just broke structure as well. Nice, so I'm going to set a limit sort of on this region. Cool, so I quite like this. We've had clear break of structure, liquidity taken out into this area of demand. Nice, so there we go. Once again though, wrong entry area, price came a little bit lower and swept the demand, but because we had that more conservative stop loss, once again we secured 3% rather than losing the trade. You don't always need to be like sniper precise with your entries, just as long as you get the right direction and can secure at least a 1 to 3, I would say. That's good going. So continuing to mark on these structure points. Price is approaching that daily supply as well, where we could see it react from. Just going to mark on this as well as the daily breaker structure, just to remind us of where price is. See if we can buy up to it. So what can we see? I'd want at least this wick to go before the buys. No, it did actually sweep it there. I missed that, played price too fast. And there we go. So price tagged into that daily supply. Not interested in any more buys now since it did come into that zone. Just going to change the color of this. I'm going to get rid of some of these as well. See if we get a valid entry. All right, so this is looking very nice. Cool, so tagged in. The reason I like this is because price swept this high. We had that initial change of character just here. And we've had all of these like people selling below that region, which just got swept. This was also Asia range actually as well. So there you go. That was a very clean example of London session taking Asia range. You can see we had this very intentional move. All of this got taken out. Could have perhaps refined that supply to this one. As you can see, price didn't quite touch it. We induced it, and it also swept that liquidity to the left. So that would have been a very clean trade. We get rid of this now. Could maybe see price come into this supply for more sells. We're expecting like a bigger sell-off than this because it came into daily supply. We have sort of these like equal lows down here as well, which I'm going to mark on. Yeah, so let's see what happens within the supply. Just change the color. Nice, so we had the breaker structure. Here's our level of supply. that is a tiny area. So what I would see a lot of people do in this scenario would be, enter something like this. I'd much rather have the stops just above there and then target the 1 to 3. So let's see how that reacts. See, the thing I like about this strategy instead is that if we would have entered like this with stops just above the high, which most people I know do, you would have been stopped out. But because we had that bigger stop loss, even though our entry area was wrong, which happens a lot of the times, the whole trade was still valid because price was within this region. We could refine it to the 15-minute supply just there as well. And because of that, we stayed in the trade and it hit the take profit. Somehow this hasn't taken us out. There we go. And what can we look for now? So again, we're looking for price to come down and sweep these two equal lows. Ideally, we want to see price retrace a bit more and at least take this high. Just there, if we mark that on. Or we could see it come higher into this region. And I'm also going to set a limit on this region. 1 to 3. There we go. And the reason this is valid, it swept this high, it broke the structure, and it came from that area of supply where we were waiting for a confirmation. But if price doesn't pull back all the way into this zone and just sweeps this, then that would equally be valid. Let's see. May not even want to pull back. Cool, so we can delete this now. Didn't quite sweep that region. And yeah, so now actually the hourly time frame, we've seen a break of structure just here. So the hourly has now flipped bearish from the daily supply. So we're expecting price to come and target probably at least this low to take out some of these previous buyers. Cool, so where can we see price come into? So we have all of these lows, definitely looking for those to get taken. Potential zone where we could see sells, maybe this area. Or just from there. So price sort of reacted from this hourly supply. Demand failed, so I'm going to wait and see how price reacts within that hourly zone. All right, so there we go. But obviously no confirmation. This would have been some sort of news event, I think. And I'm going to look at this region for some sells. once again, we have these equal lows below, so not really expecting a huge rally until all of that is swept. Let's go on the 15-minute and see. Cool, so this low was taken out. For extra confirmation, I'm going to wait and see what happens at this supply. Just because we have this area of refined supply just above, which price hasn't quite reached, but you know, it may not want to come there, but I'd want to wait and see how this reacts rather than just set the limit in this case. There we go. So let's see if we can get a retest of this and target 1 to 3. Or maybe price just misses us, and that's fine. Obviously not ideal. So we had breaker structure, pullback, mitigation of the supply. Price has now broken this low. Looking for it to target this down here. Let's have a look. So also came into this supply. This would be my next area to look for the sells, potential re-entries. Yeah, so not really a valid entry there. That's fine. Cool, so I'm going to get rid of all of this now. And what we can see here is that price broke this low. Like that. It did take this low to the left, but this doesn't really look like a reversal to me. So let's see if we can take price slightly lower. What I'd want to see would be maybe this to get taken. We still have this supply within the range. So this would still be a valid region if price can sweep this high into that zone. Let's have a look. There we go. Price is in the supply. We also had a sweep of the top of the supply. Let's see how it reacts here. I may just want to continue up. Quite like this actually. We've had the high was swept, price broke the low, and now we've sort of formed this clear structure. So let's see how price reacts at this supply. Again, targeting a 1 to 3 somewhere down here. Very nice. Almost zero drawdown on that one. Okay, cool. So looking for price to keep going down to this low. Maybe we see a pullback into the supply. If we do, I would consider that a zone for sells. But let's just see what happens. Cool, so there we go. Price is in that supply. swept some liquidity as well. I'm just going to enter here. Cool, so let's set that. Reason I like this, we had a sweep of the first tap of that zone. Price then clearly broke structure. We have this imbalanced supply. Let's see if we can get a retracement into it. There we go, tagged in. We also had this lower high just below the zone, which just got swept, as we can see. A lot of people now are looking for buys after the break. Cool, maybe another entry within this area. Let's have a look. Cool, so the supply was swept. Yeah, not really anything I would take there. Boom, there we go. Take profit hit. Again, just looking to follow this down to this low down here, which we'll mark on just like that. Cool, so there we go. The low was taken out. See what price does here. Cool, so price is now within demand. Remember as well that this was the reaction from weekly demand to the left. It did break this structure. We've just taken out all of this liquidity within the range during the move up. So I'm looking here for some buys if we see a valid entry. Let's have a look. Right, so there we go. This is a valid entry. Clear breaker structure. Clear area of demand. So I'm going to enter here. Target at 1 to 3, as always. Just going to make this stop loss a bit smaller actually. There we go. Let's see if this tags in. I like this. This is a nice bit of sort of inducement. Did react from the supply, which I'd keep in mind. Let's have a look on the lower time frame what this does. Cool. So if I miss this first entry, actually, I'm going to have a little bit of a riskier entry just here. Stops just below that wick. 1 to 3 once again. In the live market, I wouldn't do this because it would be risking 2%. But since the purpose of this is, you know, simply to test the strategy, I'll enter here. The reason is price came into our demand, swept these lows, broke structure internally, and we're expecting it to at least take this high. So see, cool, so there we go. I'm going to make this initial one break even, just so that we're only risking 1%. And there we go, both trades hit take profit. So in the live market, I would have only entered this one if I missed the initial entry, rather than having this as a scale in. because I only want to be risking, 1% per position. I think this video is already very long, so I'm going to conclude the backtesting session here. If you guys want to see a part 2 of this where we continue to backtest gold with the 1 to 3 risk to reward system, make sure to comment below, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in next Friday's video.